1,000 years ago, some people left Earth and created the League of Free Worlds. One of the planets they settled was XT-59, a place full of thick, endless swamps. Still, humans managed to build a city there. The city is controlled by a strict system that keeps everyone cut off from the outside world. Every conversation is monitored, and harsh rules are enforced. The system even chooses your spouse and job. Christy hated the job they gave her, and even more the husband they assigned. So she left it all behind, but was quickly caught. She and 8 others were taken to a special prison. There, they stood against the wall for several minutes while being scanned. The system collected all their personal data and sent it to the central network for the president to review. He then told his advisors who should be locked up and why. As the scans were wrapping up, guards brought in a 10th prisoner with a bag over his head. The captain joked that he'd love to shoot them all, but the law didn't permit it. Instead, the prisoners would be sent into the swamps. If they somehow traveled 300 kilometers east, they might reach the Islands of Happiness, where redemption was possible. But Christy had never heard of anyone surviving the journey. The swamps were full of deadly threats. The prisoners were led outside, and the man with the bag was told to walk forward. Cautiously, he kicked a rock and saw the electric fence was still active. He thought they were trying to kill him and make it look like an accident. The captain then officially gave them a sentence of exile and pulled the bag off the man's head, letting Irwin see again. Before leaving, the guards dropped off a supply box. The captain said they had 1 hour to move. Their talk was cut short when a terrifying creature burst from the ground, shaking its branch-like limbs before hiding again. Irwin said it was a sawwort, a beast that senses movement to find its target. Irwin opened the supply box, and the prisoners rushed in, shoving each other. Irwin just took a knife and told Christy to drop her items. She wouldn't need them. Then Just slammed the box shut and claimed no one could survive the swamps alone. He told them to join him, but Irwin and Christy refused. They were determined to find the islands, though Just said they were just a myth. Irwin asked for his share of the supplies, but Just refused. Irwin grabbed Kami and threatened to kill him, which would get them all shot, since fighting was forbidden. Left with no option, Just gave up the tools and food, but Irwin surprised him by asking only for the box. He even traded all his food to get it. Just agreed, and his group packed up their supplies and walked away. Christy asked if Maria could come with them, but Irwin refused. He said Maria was unstable and would slow them down. He didn't think she would survive and preferred that Just deal with her. Irwin said a pair was the best setup for survival. Christy realized he had planned this from the start and called him calculating. Irwin made her walk ahead since she was lighter and could spot deep swamp spots without sinking. He tied a rope to his waist and dragged the supply box behind him. Hours later, Ila approached them and asked to join, offering to share her supplies. Irwin was thinking about it when someone suddenly started shooting. He and Christy ducked behind rocks. When the shooting stopped and Layla was unharmed, Irwin figured she was the reason they were attacked. He told her to go, and Layla angrily ran back to her group. Irwin and Christy kept moving through the swamp, using the box for cover. Christy noticed strange creatures on it, but Irwin said they were harmless. After crossing the magnetic ridge, Irwin stood up, since weapons didn't work in that zone. He took cover behind rocks to watch the other group and confirmed they were following their path. He also noticed that one of the prisoners was missing. Then a warning light flashed, showing that the installation's cannon had fired, meaning someone was left behind and killed. Christy asked if the islands were real. Irwin said the captain trying to kill him with the fence proved they were. If there was no chance, they wouldn't have bothered. Irwin claimed he knew the swamp well, though he admitted he had never been there. Something Christy found odd. Back at the installation, the captain was talking to the president, who was furious Irwin was still alive. It turned out the shooter was actually Matthias, the missing prisoner. He was really a guard in disguise. The cannon never fired at him. The whole thing was staged. Later on, Irwin and Christy stopped to rest and drink some water. Suddenly, an electrified tentacle shot up from the ground and nearly hit Christy. Irwin jumped in, throwing his cloak over it to stop the strike. The tentacle wrapped around Irwin and cut into his chest. Following his directions, Christy used a knife to slice through the base of the tentacle, making the creature pull back. Irwin decided to keep the severed part to use as a weapon. Christie cleaned his wound and admitted that her crime was murder. She had tried to get a divorce, but a government official tried to assault her, and she fought back in self-defense. They were suddenly interrupted by the other group. Just tried to take the box, but Irwin used the tentacle like a whip to scare him off. Just's group backed away, and Irwin and Christie kept going. Hours later, Irwin noticed Just's group still trailing them. Christie asked where they were headed if they didn't believe in the islands. Irwin guessed they were after the Rotten Bank, an old prison for outcasts. Suddenly, Irwin saw a saw-wart rising out of the swamp and told Christie to stay completely still. But Just's group kept walking, making vibrations. The creature reacted. Just yelled for everyone to stop, but it was too late. The saw-wart erupted and swung its long branches. Most of the group dodged, but Maria and Job were grabbed. Job used his knife to cut himself loose, but the creature quickly healed and transformed into a huge monster. Just reminded everyone not to move. Then Kaimi panicked and ran. A branch grabbed his leg, and the main body crushed him before pulling him underground. The branches vanished. Christie was angry that Irwin didn't warn the others. He told her their survival came first and forced her to keep moving. Back at the installation, the president gave new orders. Irwin had to be captured. He referred to him as the advisor. If the officers failed to bring Irwin back, they'd become prisoners themselves. While they were resting, Christie heard a strange noise and saw a huge swarm of small creatures coming toward them. She tried to run, but Irwin pulled her back. When one got too close, he killed it with his whip and dragged Christie into the supply box. The swarm ran over the box, shaking it violently, but it held together. After the creatures passed, Irwin and Christie climbed out and kept moving, leaving the box behind. Eventually, they reached the real swamp. Using long poles, they tested the ground to avoid sinking. Elsewhere, Just's group made it to the swamp too. Maria was weak, and Just called for a break. Layla objected, worried they'd lose Irwin's trail. Just didn't care. Frustrated, Layla cut her rope and walked away. Just chased after her but fell into a deep swamp pit. Layla laughed as he begged for help. Job thought about saving him, but Layla stopped him. She then revealed that Irwin was once the president's advisor and knew the land. Most followed her, but Jan stayed behind to help Just. That night, Irwin caught a few insects and ate them raw. He urged Christie to do the same. She was disgusted, but Irwin warned that cooking them made it worse. While they rested, Irwin admitted Layla had been right. He was once the president's advisor. He had tried to expose corruption and turned himself in on purpose to be exiled. He believed the system would fall apart without him. Back at the installation, the captain found system failures. Communications were breaking down. Only Irwin knew how to reset it. Later, Layla's group met two strangers and thought they were Irwin and Christie. But they were cannibals and attacked. Maria was taken, and the rest ran. Christie heard Maria screaming, but Irwin stopped her. Saving her was too risky. The screams ended as Maria was killed. Christie cried and asked who came up with such a cruel system. Irwin admitted it was his creation. She called him a monster. Irwin said no one protested the law when it was made, so everyone shared the blame. Christie said he only felt guilt now. Crushed by guilt, Irwin ran into the swamp, hoping a creature would attack and kill him. But nothing showed up. Christie then revealed that the captain had promised her freedom if she killed Irwin. But she had refused. Elsewhere, Just and Jan caught up to Layla's group. Just grabbed Layla by the neck and she finally admitted she'd been given the same deal. Kill Irwin in exchange for freedom. Valentine scanned her ankle and found a hidden tracker. Layla tried to escape, but a web-like creature caught her leg. Strands wrapped around her until she couldn't breathe. The tracker alerted the captain, who was satisfied. He revealed an old weapon that still worked in the swamp and sent Matthias to use it. Later, Valentine found a black bag, opened it, and was killed by a dark substance that consumed him. Soon after, Jan approached Irwin and Christie, pretending he left his group. Irwin didn't believe him, and was right. Something struck him and knocked him out. When he woke up, he and Christie had been captured by the three survivors. Just said they were close to the Rotten Bank and needed a plan. Irwin told Christie to go on without him, but she refused and kissed him. Just carried Irwin, hoping to find an officer and make a deal. At the Rotten Bank, Matthias arrived with two guards. They questioned a prisoner who insisted no newcomers had arrived. Then a creature suddenly attacked, killing one of the officers. Matthias and the other guard fought back, shooting several inmates. Outside, Job was alone when the saw wart surrounded him. A guard went to check, but the creature attacked and dragged him away. The weapon misfired and hit Job in the shoulder. Inside, Just brought Matthias to where Erwin had been, but he had already escaped. Matthias used a scanner to secretly track him. As Just walked ahead, Matthias aimed his gun. Just heard the sound and fired first, but his weapon was empty. Matthias shot him twice. Matthias pulled back a curtain, expecting Erwin, but found Christy and Jan instead. He killed Jan and took Christy hostage, planning to use her to lure Erwin out. Job showed up with a weapon. Erwin offered to surrender if Matthias let Christy go. Matthias agreed. But before Job could fire, Just stabbed Matthias from behind. As Matthias fell, his gun went off and struck Christy. But it was just a sedative, not a lethal shot. Erwin thanked the dying Just, who asked for a poison pill. Erwin gave it to him so he could die peacefully. Later, Erwin, Christy, and Job reached the edge of the swamp. They spotted small islands, but Erwin realized they were just floating mats of land. Using long poles, they pushed one out, hoping it would carry them to safety. Back at the installation, the president blamed the captain for the system failures. He sent another officer to capture Erwin. Meanwhile, Job's injury got worse. Not wanting a slow death, he jumped into the sea. A creature pulled him under as he said goodbye. Hours later, a rescue aircraft found Erwin and Christy, but the system failed again, and it crashed into the water. They realized Erwin's plan had worked. The system was falling apart. They celebrated until they saw a waterfall ahead. Using Erwin's knowledge of science, they built a cocoon and held their breath as they went over the edge. They woke up on a different shore, silent and empty. Erwin said there was a secret military base nearby, but he didn't know the last digit of the access code. Christy told him to think back to the president's final words. Erwin entered a random code to test it, then used the president's words to guess the last number. It worked, and a hidden door opened. Inside, they discovered an aircraft. Erwin said there was only one seat and that Christy should go, but she chose to stay with him. They left together, sharing the seat. In time, they made it to another planet. The League of Free Worlds found out what had happened on XT-59 and sent peacekeepers. But 10 years later, a new system took control, one that ended up being even worse.